In the beginning, there was an enormous egg containing chaos. On the inside, the chaos raged on and on. Both yin and yang were mixed together. All the opposites were writhing together, male and female, cold and hot, wet and dry, dark and light. Finally, the egg burst open, and out leapt the giant dragon Pangu. Yin and yang swirled around him, and he pushed the two shell halves apart. Thus the opposites were every day for 18,000 years. Pangu grew 10 feet. Thus the sky was raised a little higher every day. Once the sky was 30,000 miles above the ground, Pangu stopped and began to hammer out the mountains and fill the valley with water to form great oceans. He created rivers with his fingers and stamped the earth down to create flat lands. He gathered raw light and tossed them into the sky to become stars. After 18,000 years, Pangu had grown old and tired. He had made the world with his hands and formed the basic principles of yin and yang. He wanted to lay down and sleep forever. Once he lay down, he never rose again. When Pangu died, his body formed huge mountains. His skull formed the top of the sky. His hair formed all flowers and plants. His bones turned to jade and pearl, and his arms and legs the 4 directions. His blood became the rivers. His breath turned into the wind, and his voice to thunder. One eye became the sun, and the other the moon. For many years the world was a very beautiful place, but also lonely. There were no people. The half-dragon goddess Nuva was born after Pangu died from part of the mixture of yin and yang that he had separated. She decided to create humans to have some other beings to talk to and share ideas with, but mostly just to love. Nuva went down to the edge of the Yellow River, where there were vast, soft mud banks. She began forming figures out of clay. She decided that it would be much more practical for her creations to have legs instead of a dragon tail. Thus her humans were not made in her image. No sooner did she set the first little mud man on the ground did he start to jump and dance and sing. He began to speak. "Look at me!" Nuva was delighted and began making more and more humans. She made hundreds and hundreds of mud humans, but soon realized that it would take centuries for her to make enough people to fill the vast earth completely. Nuva grabbed hold of a muddy stick. As the sun dried each drop, it became a new man or woman. Some say that these humans were the less intelligent ones. Those formed by Nuva's own hands became great leaders. She told them to go and populate the earth. As they grew, she loved them and protected them, and was revered as the mother of all humans.
In mythical times, a god named Amita went hunting. He found a wild boar that had a coconut speared on one of its tusks. Amita had never seen a coconut before. He took it home and hid it safely in his hut. That night, Amita had a dream. A man came to him and told him to plant the coconut. The next morning, Amita did as he was told. After 3 days, a magnificent plant appeared with large white blossoms. Amita climbed up to cut some flowers, and as he did, he accidentally cut his finger. His blood dripped on one of the flowers. 9 days later, Amita found a baby girl in the flower. He wrapped her in coconut leaves and took her home. Amita named her Enueli, which means coconut branch. Within 3 days, the baby girl grew into a young woman. Enueli had a special gift. She could produce marvelous objects made of precious materials from nothing. Her father often sold these at the market. One night, there was a big festival in town. Enueli went to the dance and brought gifts for the people: jewelry, plates, gongs, and knives. The dance lasted 9 days and 9 nights. Every day, Henueli brought more precious objects to the people, including coral necklaces and fine pottery. The people were immediately jealous of Henueli, who was obviously wealthy. On the last night, a group of male dancers threw Henueli into a great hole. They filled it with earth and danced on top of it. When Amita discovered that Henueli had been killed, he was furious. He dug up her body, cut it into pieces, and buried it in several places, except for her arms. Plants started to grow where Henueli's body parts were buried. These plants were new to the world. Most of them were tubers, which became the main source of food for people. Amita took Henueli's arms to the goddess Satani and explained what had happened. Satani announced to her people that because of this terrible act, she would leave them. She made the arms into a gateway through which all her people had to pass. When the people passed through the gate, some remained human beings, while those with evil hearts changed into animals such as pigs, birds, and fish. Others changed into spirits. Satani traveled to the mountain of the dead, where she became queen. Only the dead could see her after that. The god Amma was the first being in creation. He began working in clay and created a large, round pot. This he heated to a white-hot temperature and sent it spinning off into the darkness. The heat and light spread deep into the darkness. This became the sun. Next he created another round pot. This he heated 1/4 at a time and sent it off to be the companion to the sun. While the sun shines brightly as long as it is day, the moon shines according to its 4 phases. Amma took a third lump of clay and flung it as far as he could. The clay broke off into thousands of pieces and formed a multitude of stars. He grabbed another large lump of clay and squeezed it into a long and flat object. This he threw as far as he could. It settled to form the earth. Amma walked down to see his newest creation. He realized that the earth was a beautiful woman. Amma was lonely and immediately tried to rape her. The earth was protected by a termite hill. Amma cut it down with one stroke, and the earth was no longer safe from him. This violent attack upset the balance of the universe, and it would change the course of things forever. Instead of a set of lucky twins that Amma wanted, the earth gave birth to a single pale fox. The pale fox became a symbol of God's cruelty and difficulty. He scurried off to the dark corners of the earth to live alone. The earth became pregnant with more children, this time 2 sets of twins. Each twin had both male and female elements. One of the twins broke out of the earth early. He became the male god Yoruga. Since Yoruga was born too early, he and his sister were imperfect. All of mankind is descended from these 2 beings, and after all the years and many generations of humans, they never became perfect. The other set of twins were the water spirits, the Pneumo. The Pneumo were neither male nor female. They were half human and half fish, and had bright red eyes with long green bodies which glistened like water. Their tongues were forked like reptiles, and their arms had no joints, so they could move them in any direction. The Pneuma were perfect beings and went straight to heaven. They journeyed to the faraway star called Sigi Tolo, Sirius, and settled on its moon, the Po Tolo, or Deep Beginning, Sirius B. Their moon was pure white and heavier than all the lead in the world. Eventually, the Pneumo returned to Earth in a vessel and came crashing down with fire and lightning. They created a lake and dove into the water. The Pneumo taught man the sacred revelations that give order to the world. The first revelation is nature, which speaks through the rustling of grasses that cover the earth. The second revelation is order, symbolized by the weavings. Man is meant to live in communities and not live alone like the pale fox. The third revelation is that of the granary and the drum. The drum is to communicate, and the granary is what binds man to the earth. If all of these things are kept alive in man's thought, order is preserved, and man would flourish.